We continued our discussion on fatherhood. On part one, we emphasized the definition of fatherhood, that a father is a source. When you say this is my father, you mean I came from him. That's why many people who want you to call them father are not actually fathers. We say that when you call somebody father, it means he helped you to grow, like Luke chapter 2, verse 52, in stature, physically, he contributed materially for your growth. Number two, he helped you to grow in wisdom. He contributed in your education. Number three, he contributed in your favor with man, in your ability to talk to people. He gave you the relational skills on how to relate with one another. And number four, he taught you how to relate with God, in favor with God. That's what you mean when you say that he is that this is your father. And we drew all this from Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14 and 15. For this reason, I knew before the Father, that's God, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derived its name, that all families must act as drawn from God the Father. And therefore, every father must understand that he is supposed to act like God the Father. He is God's representative. We still introduce the idea of that if you are really a good father, your home will become the human development center, and that it is where you are learning that the world will be as good or as bad as the kind of fathers we have, because they're the ones producing who will be there in the future. And it's not after you die. By the time you are 60, 70, you are retiring or stopping to be available, you yourself as a doctor, you will no longer be a doctor. It is these children and their age mates that are going to be doctors. So you actually will have to harvest your fatherhood. As they treat you, they become presidents, they become ministers, they become pastors. And now you sit back and they minister to you or they serve you. The kind of children you produced will be what you reap as an old man or an old woman. So it's important as a father to understand that you'll harvest what you planted before you die if the Lord gives you long enough life. So your home, we said in part 2, must become a human development center. We also said it should be an unconditional love center where children feel secure. A lot of people are so insecure. You talk something and say, are you talking about me? Because they don't have confidence in themselves. They are so worried what people think about them. But maybe because the father did not give them unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. Because then they feel accepted. If you don't accept them, they know they are accepted in God, they are accepted in their father, and they feel at home. So they can go out there and deal with the world, not seeking acceptance from the world, but just trying to help the world to go the right direction. And so we said you need to make your home. And we also said in part 2 that the home is the worldview foundation center. That the kind of values children are going to have, that's still in part 2. The kind of values the children will have will actually be the kind of values adults will have will be what they got from their parents. And so it will be important you understand that. Then in part 3, we spend the whole time talking about the retreat center. The home must be a retreat and recharge center. And because it's a recharge center, it will be only possible. This is where people run to. After fighting out there, they run here in order to recharge, to get strength alone again, so they can go back and do what needs to be done out there in the man-eat-man kind of society that they are working in. And we emphasize that for that to happen, the parent must rely on God, must show that they cannot, nobody on their own can be the kind of person we are talking about. So they must rely on God. God must show them how to do the various tasks a father is supposed to have. And the children must learn that their father depends on God. So that is, they are setting a spiritual example. They are in favor with God, so they are showing the children how they can also be in favor with God. And we also spent the time saying that the father is a priest in his family. And we said if he's a priest, it's because he talks to God about his family. He prays for them. Number two, he talks to people, to his children about what God has said. Number three, he sets an example. And so he is a priest of the family. We want now, in part 4, to emphasize several things about this father. Number one, he is the family visionary. He is the one who looks ahead. When maybe the other people in the family are too busy with what is going to be eaten today, how are we going to pay the school fees, whatever. The father must look ahead. And we said from the beginning, the father must be the one who spends time developing a vision of what the children should become when they are adults. Because without a vision, you will not know what to do now. Because what you do now depends on the kind of person you want to produce in your factory. It's the design stage of a factory that determines what will be produced. And of course, they test it with the market, but it's the design stage. And we are saying the father is the visionary. Just look at Genesis 24, verse 7 and 8. The Bible says, "The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there." Verse 8, "If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you will be released from this oath of mine. Only do not take my son back there." Can you see the vision that that is found in Genesis chapter 12 that God gave to Abraham was repeated, that even Eliezer, the supervisor in his household, and Isaac the son, and Ishmael the son could never miss it. He had a clear vision that Isaac was going to live in Canaan, that God intended them to be residents of Canaan. And that's why Isaac could not be allowed to go back even to look for a wife. And yet he was not allowed to marry one of the pagan girls either. So Eliezer had to be the go-between to bring a biblically believing wife to the son of Abraham, Isaac. All I'm saying to you is that you need clarity of vision. As you are paying primary school fees, picture your children going to university. What is it that you need to do? I was very happy the other day when a father told me, because he married late, he told me, because I married late, I had to plan properly. I knew that some of the children will go to university when I'm already retired. So I created a fund where we were putting money. Now I don't pay, I'm retired and not paying any school fees because they are getting educated with the fund. A father does not just move from heart to mouth. He thinks ahead. He can tell you what is going to happen, what kind of going to be requirements for these primary school children by the time they're in high school, by the time they're in university. That's not the only thing. He thinks in terms of when they are adults and they are married. He goes beyond that. He thinks about, what about when I'm dead myself and they're on their own? It is the responsibility of a father to think ahead and to give this picture of the future to the children so they are not caught up by what is happening around. God is telling us God's word is a light to our feet and a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. The path goes forwards. So it should not just be a lamp seeing what is on the ground. You must also be the kind of father who looks ahead, who uses God's word as a lamp to see way into the future. Let me ask you the question. Do you have a vision statement for yourself? Do you have a family vision statement? What is it? Can you actually look and see can you describe in half a page each one of your children what you hope they'll become later in life? Obviously, a vision is a prayer because you can't make it happen. God has to make it happen. That's why to develop a vision, you need God. It is done in prayer. Number two, it is sustained by prayer. You need to ask God to show you the kind of future your children should have. Then you now spend time in prayer. We said earlier that the father is a priest. He prays. One of the critical things you must pray is to think about the future. Talk to the children about not just the immediate needs, but how they can prepare themselves for the future. You have lived into the future, and it's really useful that you have lived into you have lived into the future. But can't you look back and help your child to see the future where they are now? And yet, we do not want the child to be so caught up with the future that they do not see where they are. It's a balance. That there are things to do today. If they don't eat today, they'll die. So there'll be no future. You must give them something to eat today. But out of what you are giving them, something must be saved for investment so that they can benefit into the future. This is the balance we are talking about. That when you talk about the father as a visionary, it is that ability to divide up what they have now and divide it up so that a little is invested so that it will be available in the future. You do not end up becoming a total dependent for them, that they start working and all of a sudden they are the ones that are meeting your needs. And they wonder, Papa, didn't you plan at all how you'd live your life? Obviously, the generations that have gone before us were such that the children were investment. So they did not look at the future of the children. They looked at their own future. So they invested in children so that when they themselves are old people, their children will be looking after them. And yet the Bible is saying something different. It's saying it is not the children that save for parents. It's parents that save for the children. And that means when you talk about the father is a visionary, he not only is working hard to produce enough for today, he has something he has invested to help the children through their education, through their adulthood, but also for him to use when he is too old to have the energy to continue working. And it's important so that they can see. And when you teach them like that, they'll see, wow, I should not be finishing everything. When I have a little money, I don't buy the most expensive car. I can buy a cheaper car so that a little is saved, so that like my father, I can actually live my old age without disturbing my children. That's really what we are talking about when we talk about being a visionary. What we are really saying is that you need a strategic plan. Not a strategic plan for your business, a strategic plan for your family. Where do you see them to be by the time you are 80, assuming God gives you the age of 80? Where do you see your family? That's the first question, that's the vision. Number two, a mission statement in your strategic plan. What do you need to do as a family that will help that vision to be realized? Number three, what are the core values? What are core values? Boundaries within which you must operate in order to go to your vision. You need to be able to tell, your children need to know, that can't happen, that can happen. Your values are the boundaries within which you operate. That means even if it will make it shorter, there's a shortcut here in order to reach the vision, you'd rather do without your vision. You'd rather be a failure rather than break your values. And your children need to know them. What are the values of the family? When we say the father is a visionary, it means he tells them what the values of the family are. What are the non-negotiable convictions that the father operates within? And so you don't, when you hear somebody start talking about your father, you say, no, don't bother him. That area he can't go. Because they know his values. Do they actually know your values? Thirdly, what objectives are you going to meet these years, future years? Because the strategic plan not only has a vision and mission and core values, it also has goals and objectives. Then it also has strategies that you are going to use. And then a good strategic plan is resourced. Where are you going to get the resources? When will you need them? How much of them? In order for you to realize your strategic intent. That's something that you need to ask yourself whether you are doing that. We now also want to emphasize that not only are you a visionary, you are also a family provider. Psalm 37 verse 25 says, I was young and now I'm old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. Why don't their children not beg bread? Because the father provides to them. And it's important to us to know that you cannot be the kind of father who only calls shots, but you're not providing. You rely on your wife to be the provider. You are only the head of the home. That's not right. It is important to understand one of the key responsibilities of a father is providing. And remember, you will not provide for your children all the time. By the time they get 20 and leave home and are working, you can turn your mind to something else. But when they are young, they are totally dependent upon you. So you must work very hard in order not only to meet your personal needs, but to meet the needs of your children. The father is a provider. And you may not be having much, but you must learn how to live within your means. You know, when you live within your means, there will be enough for every important thing your family requires. There may be fathers who are very rich. You don't have to be like them. The basic needs of the family are very simple. It's something to eat, a balanced diet, and you can do it almost at whatever little money you have. It is clothing, and you can do it even if you have to go to a second-hand shop. The important thing is they are well clothed, they are smart. It's a responsibility of you to ensure that they have it. So not only are you feeding them, you are clothing them, but you are also sheltering them. You have provided a way, a place for them to stay. They should not be the kind of family which is being thrown out by landlords from every direction. They need to know that you are working very hard to ensure they have a shelter where they cannot be thrown out by a landlord. Those are basics. And remember, you're not saying that you are living in Uzuguni, you are living in expensive places. The important thing is they have a place they can call, a physical, geographical place they can call home. That's what you are talking about when you say you are providing. You are providing food, you are providing clothing, you are providing shelter, you are providing education. Again, it doesn't mean they go to the expensive schools. They can go to a public government school, which is now education is free. But ensure they go to school, provide their transport for them to be able to go to school. And you need to take that as your responsibility. And until your children finish university, it is a responsibility you need to think of. And remember, it's a temporary responsibility. Most of your life, you will not be having them. Let's assume, for example, they finish school by the time you are 55 and you are dying at 95. There will be another 40 years when you are not paying school fees. It is important that you are responsible enough as a family man, as the provider of the home. If you are richer and give other things, that's okay. You can pay for them to get postgraduate education, things like that. But the basic requirements need to be met by a father. It's a responsibility, it's a duty, rather than as a luxury. And it's important that you understand as a parent that's what you need to do. So if you really are not married yet, you must enter into marriage, aware that that's what you are becoming, a father who will provide for his family. I think we have also emphasized the father is the role model. We have spent a bit of time talking about that. Genesis 12 verse 19 to 20 says, why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Verse 20, then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. This is Abraham at his weakest. He was so afraid because he married a beauty queen. And so he feared wherever he went, people would be after his wife. And they could easily kill him to take the wife. So he lied that she is just a friend. She is just a friend. She is just a relative. She is just a sister. Actually, she was a sister. What happens? Oh, just like he feared, Pharaoh wanted her for a wife. So, of course, God sorted him out. So Pharaoh did not sleep with Abraham's wife. But then he is saying, why did you say she is my sister? Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abraham to his men. This weakness must be a weakness that, Isaac learned about. It must have been a big issue in the family. Because when he himself became an adult, he did exactly like the father. Genesis 26, verse 7 and 8, we read now about Isaac. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, she is my sister, because he was afraid to say, she is my wife. He thought, the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful. When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. It sounds like this Abrahamic family was only marrying beauty queens. So Rebekah is also a beauty queen. So Abimelech wants her. Now, here is a sin, a weakness that was in Abraham being seen in the son. What does that teach us? That you need to be very careful what weaknesses you're exhibiting to your children, you are talking about to your children. Because the truth of the matter is, what you do is likely to influence your children. You show your children that drinking alcohol is a good idea, you can manage it. Your children also drink alcohol. They might not manage, but you will have learned how to be alcohol dependent from the father. You become a womanizer, and when they become teenagers, they can, of course, catch you in various places, and it gives them freedom to also become womanizers. It's important to understand when you say the father is a role model, is to understand that you are reproducing yourself. It's like when you walk in a muddy place, you know your steps are going to make a mark on it. And children are like a mold. When you walk on them, you leave your mark on them. They end up becoming like you. So you're saying, when you talk about fatherhood, it means that we have been given a slate by God. It's slate called children. The question is, what kind of marking are we going to make on them? Because like Isaac, they are likely to repeat our mistakes. They are likely to repeat our good actions. So all that parents will be good role models. So the children will struggle to be like their father, because they know that when they are doing wrong, they are not being like him. And then they'll keep saying, if my father could do it, I can also do it. And that is a good thing to do. But if the father was a failure, they say, surely I understand, my father was a much better man than me, and yet he failed. It gives him permission to fail. It will be very, very important that we understand that what we are saying is that we are going to be people that are going to set good examples as a father. So when you say you are a father, you must set a role model. And this role model is not when your children are babies only. It's when they are toddlers. It's when they are preschoolers, when they have become primary school children, when they are in high school as teenagers, when they go to university. They need to keep seeing your example. And when they are old themselves, they will be looking at their older father and say, my father did it this way. How can we do this? What did my father do? It is what you did. Even if you are 70 and they themselves are 50, they will still be watching you to see how you are living your life. Because whatever stage they are at, you have gone through it before them. So they will be looking at you as an example. So here we are saying, remember, when I say, that guy is my father, you mean he is my celeb. You mean he is my role model. You mean that's what I want to become. When I grow up, I want to be like this. And that, unfortunately, for many of us, we keep praying, God, may my children not be like me. Because we know our weaknesses. May the Lord help us. Can you see that when you said you are a priest, and we said you are going to be the kind of priest that is going to pray for your family? Maybe I should be emphasizing praying for yourself. To be a role model will require very seriously that God helps you. How can we ever be anything other than with the help of God? You know, our weaknesses are too obvious. Our inabilities are too obvious. And yet God is looking in us the kind of examples our children will follow. May we run to God, who alone can give us the enablement, the strength, the anointing to be the kind of fathers that God expects us to be. You know, it is important to understand that in all we have been saying in this series, it will be important that we learn that what we are going to leave is what we call a legacy. What are the kind of legacies you would want to leave? Let me first of all read 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14. It says, "Now I'm ready to visit you for the third time, and I will not be a burden to you, because what I want is not your possession, but you. After all, children should not have to save up for their parents, but parents for their children." The legacy you are going to leave is not by becoming a dependent. That's why the spiritual father, Paul, is telling the Corinthian church, "I will come to visit you, but I don't want anything from you. I am not coming there because I want any of your possessions." No. Do your children get that impression? That when they come to visit you, it's not that you are after their possessions. That when they come to visit you yourself, they are not coming to pick anything from you. That, or rather, you are not asking them to come with anything. That a child cannot visit you because he has no blanket to bring home. Here Paul is saying, I am coming to visit my children in this church. These are spiritual ones. But I'm not coming for any possession. You will not leave a good legacy. Who if people are going to feel good riddance when you die? He has been such a disturbance. Your son-in-law, your father-in-law feels, as long as that man was alive, we could never sort out our family. We always were having to think about not our needs, but the needs of this old man. Oh, isn't it good he has died? I think it will be important, if you are going to leave a legacy, number one, to pray to God that you will be dependent, or you would be dependent on him and not on your children. Number two, if you are going to leave a legacy, that you are going to be more careful, very careful, about what you leave in your children than what you leave for your children. Many African parents are working night and day. Their worry is, what am I going to leave for your children? Your children are capable of producing wealth on their own, only if you have left something in them. Let me repeat. Fathers should care about what they leave in their children, not what they leave for their children. In their children means the values. It means the aspirations. Means the spiritual life they have. What do you leave in them? That's why you should invest from the time that children are young, invest in them, such that by the time you die, you have given them values that can help them. Thirdly, leave them with a God dependency, that they have learned how to depend on God, because that's the kind of legacy. I learned to depend on God because they are going to say of my parents. But number three, teach them not to depend on others. That it's important to learn that if you are dependent upon God, God can meet your needs. Sometimes you meet your needs through others. But don't become a beggar, wanting to live your life out of other people's sweat. It will be important that that's the kind of legacy you want to leave your children. Because you yourself lived within your means, your children will learn to live their means. You yourself trusted in God, they will learn to trust in God. You yourself loved people, they will learn to love people. You yourself valued others, they will learn to value others. May that be the legacy we leave as fathers. Thank you very much.